can one truly prove anything without the existence of God? A provocative question that catapulted a memorable debate in 1985 at the University of California at Irvine. Here, philosopher Greg Bahnsen and atheist Gordon Stein squared off over the existence of God in what would become a landmark discourse later known as the Great Debate. Bahnsen, armed with a compelling argument, proposed the transcendental argument for the existence of God. He provocatively stated, "The transcendental proof for God's existence is that without him, it is impossible to prove anything. The atheist worldview is irrational and cannot consistently provide the preconditions of intelligible experience, science, logic, or morality. The atheist worldview cannot allow for laws of logic, the uniformity of nature, the ability for the mind to understand the world, and moral absolutes. In that sense, the atheist worldview cannot account for our debate tonight." Bahnsen's approach centered around the presuppositional conflict of worldviews between atheism and Christianity. He presented the idea that the atheist borrows logic from the Christian worldview to make their claims. Only Christianity, he argued, is a reasonable position to hold, and the truth of Christianity is proved from the impossibility of the contrary. This debate was well received, with many in the audience convinced that Bahnsen won. Now let's delve into the key points of this debate and their significance. Bahnsen's argument essentially proposed the transcendental proof for God's existence. He stated, "Without him, it is impossible to prove anything." He argued that the atheist worldview cannot consistently provide the preconditions of intelligible experience, science, logic, or morality. Reflecting on intelligible experience, Paul Davies, in The Historic Alliance of Christianity and Science, noted that people take it for granted that the physical world is both ordered and intelligible. The underlying order in nature, the laws of physics, are simply accepted as given, as brute facts. Nobody asks where they came from, at least they do not do so in polite company. However, even the most atheistic scientist accepts as an act of faith that the universe is not absurd, that there is a rational basis to physical existence, manifested as law-like order in nature that is at least partly comprehensible to us. So science can proceed only if the scientist adopts an essentially theological worldview. As for science, in the 2023 article, New Book for Kepler, Science Did Not Point to Atheism. Stephen Meyer, who has a PhD in the philosophy of science from Cambridge, quotes historian Ian Barbour as saying, "Science in its modern form arose in Western civilization alone, among all the cultures of the world, because only the Christian West had the necessary intellectual presuppositions underlying the rise of science." Meyer then lists those necessary intellectual presuppositions of Christianity as such. 1. Intelligibility. 2. The contingency of nature. And 3. The fallibility of human reasoning. In the article, he gives a short defense of each claim. On the topic of logic, in his 2018 article titled Naturalism and Self-Refutation, Dr. Michael Egnor noted, "Logic is neither material nor natural. Logic, after all, doesn't exist in the space-time continuum, and isn't described by physics. What is the location of modus ponens? How much does Gödel's incompleteness theorem weigh? What is the physics of non-contradiction? How many millimeters long is the argument for naturalism? Ironically, the very logic that is employed to argue for naturalism is outside of any naturalistic frame." Finally, on morality, Bahnsen argued that atheism denies the existence of objective morality. However, to perform science effectively, objective moral virtues such as trust, honesty, and integrity are required. Science would simply be impossible if scientists did not as a whole adhere to these objective moral values. This debate illuminated the deep-rooted conflict between atheism and Christianity, and challenged the audience to question whether atheism is a coherent worldview. It highlighted the importance of presuppositional beliefs in forming a logically coherent worldview. Necessary presuppositional beliefs, which can only be rationally grounded within the Judeo-Christian worldview. Whether you side with Bahnsen's Christianity or with Stein's atheism, one thing remains clear. Atheism is not a rationally coherent worldview to hold.